Now that we have our impacts working properly for our shooting behavior, we need to do a little refinement and actually plug in our shooting animation in our flipbook in the player character. If you recall, in our state machine here, we run the anim state switch here to set the flipbook to shoot on this shoot node. It currently sets nothing, of course, which is why our player character was vanishing whenever we pulled the trigger. So we're going to do a little work on that now. We'll go to the content browser and we'll go to our player character sprites. And if we look at the player character sprites, we see numbers, looks like 12, 13, 14, 15, where his hand is glowing green. He sort of shoots it out of his arm. Those look like 12 through 15 would be the good sprites to use for frames for the shooting animation. So we'll right click on those to create a flipbook. And we'll name the flipbook anim_shoot. And already we see a little weird jerkiness going around in the animation. So let's double click on the animation to open it up in the flipbook editor. And we see, let's stop this and just scrub through the, frames here. Let me pause it. There we go. We can see 12 looks okay, then he starts scooting to the left. Because his actual sprite gets wider, that's why it's happening. The sprite gets wider, so it makes it appear that he's being pushed to the left. So we're going to need to do some custom offsets here in the individual sprite frames here that we grabbed. So let's see, 12, we want to go look at our pivot mode. In the view, there we go, bottom center was the one we set to before. Custom gives us a custom pivot point to move them on the X and the Y. We want to move them on the X, but not this one. This one's actually centered. We can look and see that there. Now this one we want to set for custom because we can see the pivot point. It's not lined up directly beneath his leg, sort of aligned with his crotch. That's where we want it to be. So we're going to shift him over a little bit till he ends up, that's about pretty good, right there. And this guy, number 14, same thing, custom pivot mode. Again, we'll align this up more or less with his crotch. There we go. And we'll find 15 in here. Also set this to custom pivot. And let's type in 300, no, a little more. 289, 288, that puts it in the center there. We're going to take a moment now to smooth out our shoot animation. If I go here, we can see that it is moving really fast between 12 and 15. What that means is it goes 12, 13, 14, 15, and then it goes all the way back to there. We want to have that be a smooth loop, so we need some frames to basically play it in reverse after frame 15. We want it to go 15, 14, 13, back to 12. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a few extra keyframes, 3 more. They're blank keyframes. And we're going to copy paste some of these here. We're going to copy paste 14 to there, and 13 to there, and then we're going to do 12 back to there. Now if we hit play, it gives us a bit more smooth, like he raises his gun to shoot, he shoots, he lowers the gun again. That's more what we want in this case. Okay, now that we've set up our anim shoot, we'll go back to our event graph and the player character, and we can set the flipbook when this state is reached. So there we go, anim shoot for the new flipbook. We'll compile and save this. Now if we test this and we press the trigger, we see our actual anim shoot being used. But we can see, well, on the one hand, it's hard to see the actual projectile because of the light background behind it. But we can see that it's not lined up with the actual end of the sort of fist that he's using to shoot with. It's actually shooting a bit above it on the z-axis, a bit too high. But actually, because this background's kind of bothering me, I'm going to spend a few moments here making a dark background in our test level so we can more clearly see the effects of our sprite in the world. And this is something that we'll deal with more thoroughly when we're actually building out our level geometry with sprites, making sure there's a good contrast between the player character and the background. But for now, I'm just going to grab the texture of the floor and apply it to the wall here and just make this our backdrop as well, the same darker texture, which actually is in shadow too, which helps. But that should be good. If we hit play and we fire now, we can see, okay, we can see our sprites a lot better. That's good. We'll go back to the viewport now. The next step in getting our shooting of the projectile working properly and aligned properly is to give it a proper origin for spawning the projectile. If you recall earlier, we began testing our launching of the projectile using the arrow component that's inherited in the player character. The only problem with that is we can't move this arrow in the center of the character, so we're going to need an arrow we can move around. So we'll add a new arrow, and let's see, we'll move this down to the bottom. We'll rename this just arrow projectile, and we'll resize it a little bit here, get it to 0.5, and let's see if we move it out a little bit from the character. Can get it to a pretty decent location away, so that we see our anim shoot. It's just for preview purposes. We'll change the default to anim shoot. The nice thing about this is we can actually see the location, the exact pixel location where he'll be shooting. So if we look at from the front viewport, we can move the arrow that we placed in for our projectile origin directly where we want it to come out at the end of his arm. Now the timing's a little weird, but we can see that clearly the projectile is coming from the exact position we want it to, which means our animation is set properly and is set and oriented exactly as we need it.